Hey friends out there in YouTube land, Robert Hamm here, and today we're going to talk about the RF70 and answer two very interesting questions, and that is how to get great blue skies and how to use flash with this camera. If you're ready, let's jump into it. Friends, if you're ready to get beautiful blue skies like this, stick around because I'm going to give you the tips. But this isn't just one shot. This isn't a one-off. This is over and over and over again. I'm able to get these absolutely gorgeous blue backgrounds. And how do we do that? How do we get these great skies and these soft tones? And I don't do it just here and there. I do it in the water, I do it on the beach, and I do it in my backyard. We've even got a really cool one coming up here. This is more of a studio shot with flash. And today, this is what we're going to be talking about. Oh, here's a fun one I've got of my son standing in front of a lighthouse. So if you're ready to know about that, I'm ready to give you the answers. And the answer is simply, you've got to understand your flash, and you've got to understand your film sensitivity. Let's talk about just how to get the blue skies in the first place. All right, we've got our camera here, and the film that we're using is very light sensitive. Instax film is very, very sensitive to light, and it's an ISO 800 rating. If you're not used to film, that's okay. Just recognize that it's very sensitive and requires fast shutter speeds. Luckily, the RF70 can do that for us. We can photograph with the RF70 with flash up to 1/500th of a second, and as you can see, I've got an external flash unit right there. But the first thing is I've got a real great easy tip for you. For those of you that are familiar with the Sunny 16, this will make a lot of sense. For those of you that are not familiar with the old photography adage of the Sunny 16, let me give you a very, very condensed course on how to use it with this camera. First of all, you're going to want to find out if the day is really bright. And you do that by looking at the shadows. That's one of the easiest ways to tell. If you look on the ground and you've got shadows with a very defined edge that look almost like a cookie cutout of the shape that they're representing or being caused from, then you've got a day that's really, really bright, and this is where this tip is going to help you. Generally speaking, when you're out and about with this camera, f8 is going to be a great starting point. Set your aperture to f8, set your shutter speed all the way up to 1/500th of a second, and you're going to be good to go. When you get into a shady area, you've got the ability to slow the shutter down to 1/250th or 1/125th in order to bring in some more light while maintaining your aperture and your depth of field. But when you get into a really bright situation, you can also close down the aperture from f8 to f16 to f22 in order to do the same thing. Starting at f8 with our shutter speed at 1/500th of a second is going to be very, very helpful. In this case, we also want to shoot so that the sun is to our side or to our back. In this case, we're not using flash, so we're not going to be using any light for our subjects. We're talking about landscapes and possibly subjects. If the sun is to our back, that means it's going to light up the subject that we're looking at, and it means that also the aperture is going to be small enough or dark enough at f8 to also give us a little bit of separation, but more importantly, make sure that we don't overexpose the skies. In fact, we really want to underexpose the skies a little bit in order to get quite a lot of that blue in there. But if you don't have a flash, the way that we do it real simply is f8, and then we think about where we are. If we're in the bright sun, we're at 1/500th of a second, and we need to close down, like on the beach, we can go down to f11. If we're in the shade, we can go at f8 and then open up our shutter speed up to 1/250th or 1/125th. Makes it real easy, gets you great photos. Now, we've got one other tip. Mint Camera's got something really cool for us, and that's the neutral density kit. And I really like this kit when paired with flash specifically. But the trick works the same. f8 plus ND8 when using flash. Now, an ND8 gives us 3 stops of light stopping capability. And now we're going to talk about how we use that flash with the neutral density 8 in order to recover a lot of detail, save a lot of color, and illuminate our subject just the way we want. And at the end, I'll run down how to set up the flash to work with your system. So, let's talk about it. This is a neutral density filter, and what you might see is as it goes across, it acts like a sunglasses for me or your camera. Look, as we get closer, it makes everything darker, okay? Blurrier because of autofocus, right? Well, this is a bayonet mount system. It's 3 stops, which means that it gates the light by 3 steps or increments. Because ISO, because shutter speed, and because aperture value are all related in the photography triangle, we can use this to gate the light and save some stops somewhere else. So if we stop 3 stops of light coming in to get the same exposure, we can open up 3 stops in aperture or shutter speed. If we have to shoot at 1/2000th of a second in order to get a proper exposure at f8, we can use this to gate our shutter speed from 1/2000. One stop would be 1000, two stops would be 1/500th, three stops would be 1/250th. So 1/2000, 1/1000, 1/500th, 1/250th is three stops of light. That means when we use this, we put it on here, we can shoot in a condition like at a bright beach where there's sun reflecting off the sand, where normally we would need 1/2000th of a second or even higher and still use f8. But now we don't even have to use 1/500th. We can use 1/250th of a second and still get a properly exposed image. How cool is that? Okay, let's talk about that beach situation. Let's say we're out at the beach. We look down and we notice those hard shadows. We also realize that we're on the sand. Or this could apply to concrete in the city jungle. They say, that light that bounces off the sand or the concrete is really bright, so it's going to illuminate your subject as well. That could be your landscape, it could be everything. So when we're out in those locations, most of the time we're going to need 1/2000th of a second on our shutter speed. We can't get there with 1/500th of a second. A three-stop neutral density filter like the one here will actually act as that 1/2000th of a second shutter. We set our shutter to 1/500th of a second, and then we just count up three stops. 1/500th all the way up to 1/1000th, 1/1000th all the way up to 1/2000th, and 1/2000th all the way up to 1/4000th. Now we're at 1/4000th of a second. But wait, you said, Rob, we only needed three stops and we wanted 1/2000th. Now we're at what would be equivalent to 1/4000th. This is giving me a headache. Not really. Remember earlier I said we want to have the skies underexposed just a little bit in order to bring out that really deep blue color? Well, by using the three-stop neutral density filter at 1/500th of a second, that's exactly what we do. So now we got to add some more light in so that our subjects, specifically for portraits, are illuminated. And we do that with flash. And we got the flash right here. We've connected the flash with the sync cable into the sync socket. It's a sync socket with a 1.5mm sync connector, male connector to a female socket connector. And then we've put new batteries in here. Everything's on manual on the flash. Of course, we can control multiple groups. And we've got a flash holder bracket on here to make it work. So by doing so, we give ourselves the ability to use flash in a very directional way. Now we can put the subject in front of us. We can have the area back illuminated from them or to our back, it doesn't matter. And now we can expose for the background. We can expose for that blue sky. By using flash, we can then illuminate the shadows that would normally be caused because we're underexposing the image about a stop. And here's something else you got to know. With Instax film, that exposure is going to take about 24 hours to set, although it's going to go to about 90 to 95% of its total contrast within the first 5 minutes. That means that overnight, images that appear too bright will gain about 10%, 5 to 10% more contrast, and images that are underexposed will go almost completely dark in their contrast because they will continue to develop throughout the time. Now, over that 24-hour period, the development chemicals become inert. So we also like to use flash, especially for our subjects, to kind of overexpose them a little bit so that the detail can come out just slightly. Now, I know this may not sound so completely scientific, but you can go read all about this on Fujifilm's white paper pages about their Instax Wide film. It's out there and available. So, without using the flash, it's just f8 and we go, we run and gun, we have a good time. We use our shutter as well as our aperture to control the lighting situation when we're out and about. If we need to kind of tone down the aperture in a sunny spot, we can go from f8 to f11 to f16 to f22. If we're in a kind of shadier spot, like under the trees or something, we can go from f500th to 250th or 1/125th in order to get the shot we would like and still maintain consistent exposures across the shadow and highlight areas. When we're outdoors and we've got flash, we can use our neutral density 8 with the flash in order to get great studio kinds of shots, which are a lot of fun. And finally, we can end up with studio shots by using this system, except replacing this flash head with a controller or a transmitter unit that can control multiple flash. Only thing we need to do is remember to read the light. If you don't have a light meter, you can get the Light Meter app on iOS and Android. I am not sponsored by them, but it's the one I use, and it's free. It's just called Light Meter. It's by a guy named David Qualus or Denny Qualus, and he made this really cool app, and it can tell you what light reading that you're at and what you need to use when you're there. So when you're outdoors and you want to photograph with this, you can get a better handle on what your lighting condition will be. This camera does actually have metering built into it, and it will even suggest to you on the back LCD screen which neutral density filter to use when shooting with a neutral intensity filter in this little window right here. Yeah, there it goes. Before I leave, let's talk about this as we disconnect it. You're gonna need the flash sync cable, and that's this cable right here. This is a socket, female socket to male pin, 1.5 millimeter, don't get the 2 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter. You're gonna need that. You're gonna need a flash that has a flash synchronization socket, and that looks like this on the side right here. You're gonna need that little socket right there. You can, did my finger cover it up? Yeah, it did. You're gonna need that one right there where my finger is. In fact, let's point to it. This one. I don't want to flip anybody off, but you're going to need that part right there. This one also has a cable for a battery pack. Anyways, after you do that, you're going to go ahead and need a flash bracket because there's no flash to attach to. And if you're out shooting without a flash, you can still use the pop-up flash that's available on the camera itself. A really well thought out design. For me, I find that it's so simple to use. F8 plus ND8 at 1/500th of a second is where I start for all my outdoor photography with this camera, and I absolutely love it. You guys saw the images. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and it's kind of demystified a few things. Once again, I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank Mint, Gary, the team over there in Hong Kong. You guys have been great. They're at Photokina right now. So if you're at Photokina, go stop by and say hello to Gary and Mint and the team. And if you see Andre Dominguez from Cinestill, give him a high five too. Tell him Rob says, what's up. You guys take care. I'll catch you on the flip side.